All right. Welcome to episode 10 of Three Tales Told. Of course, I'm Sean Splatt here in Marquette, Saskatchewan. We also have Jason Lavoie.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
And, of course, Shane Wright.
Hey, how are you?
We're good. We had quite a start.
Yeah.
Yes.
Our last episode of the season, guys. We did it.
Yeah, yeah. And
Our
of course,
finale.
another great episode. We'll have three great tales, I'm sure.
And I guess I'm going first, eh?
Yeah, you bet. Take it away, Jason.
All right. Well, one of the things I wanted to talk about for the longest time was because, we do some personal stories and things like that. And Shane told us about his record, his amazing record. And Sean's talked about his grandfather's service and that sort of thing. We sometimes do little personal stories. And I want to talk about Sri Lanka. And the only reason why I know anything about Sri Lanka, and one of the reasons why I know anything about Sri Lanka, is because I met a Sri Lankan. And then I married a Sri Lankan. And I thought, I'm going to talk about Sri Lanka, but I might as well bring my Sri Lankan here, my wife, Shihara, to talk about it. Now, rest assured, she could have talked about any sort of thing, but I'm going to begrudgingly or not begrudgingly force her to talk about what she knows well, among many things, is her home country. So we're going to have our first ever guest here. So Shihara, say hello.
Hi, everyone. I am honored to be the first guest on the show.
Excellent. Can we turn this into a drinking game? Like, can we take a shot every time either you or Jason says Sri Lanka?
That's a great idea. You'd
drunk,
like that,
Shane.
wouldn't you? I bet you'd like that even better if it was a stripping and drinking game. I know you, Shane. I know how you roll.
If I was still in my 20s, yeah, strippers would probably be involved. But
Oh, no, it's every time we say Sri Lanka, you have to take off an article of clothing.
Oh, not us.
No one wants to see that.
geez.
You'd be blacked out and naked.
Yeah, we're too old now. We can't talk and strip at the same time.
Well, at least I'm the only one here. By myself. No one else see me, so.
So it's all just, we'll take your word for it.
This could be your 10th and last episode after that.
So yeah, one thing that I must admit when someone said, tell me about Sri Lanka, and sort of what a lot of Canadians and people in the West go, it's that, island, maybe it's by India, it's kind of tucked away around southern Asia, maybe it's a province of India, it's something like India, it's exactly like India. There was like some war there with like tigers or something. Now that is like completely ignorant, and it is absolutely jewel among itself in Asia, a very unique country and a very beautiful country, and I must say probably one of the most favorite places I've ever been in my life, and I've been the pleasure to be there twice. And so how is it different from India? Because let's start there. Like, a lot of people honestly think it's a province of India or a state of India.
Well, one of the biggest things I can say is when Indians talk, Sri Lankans have no idea what the hell they're saying. So Sri Lanka has its own language, its own languages, and different food, different culture. It's pretty much got a different vibe going on. I mean, obviously there are like certain similarities because it is of the region, but honestly, I would say that there are more differences than similarities. Remember how I used to tell you when I used to work at one of the banks I used to work at,
Mm-hmm.
most of the staff was South Asian, and so they were from India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and I guess via Hindi and I guess even Urdu being kind of similar to Hindi, they could kind of all understand each other. But guess who couldn't understand that conversation? Me. So
Sri Lanka's like the black sheep of the South Asian family, where they all speak very similar language like Hindi and Urdu, and they can all understand, but Sri Lanka speaks Sinhalese. But you grew up speaking English, which
Yeah.
a lot of Sri Lankans do.
Well, 40% of the population is like English speaking, so English is their first language. So of that 40%, I grew up speaking English. In fact, obviously I can speak the other two languages and I can read and write it to some extent, but honestly, I'm like fluent. English is like my comfort zone. Like if you like came at me like using big words in the other two languages, I'd be lost. So yeah, stick to English with me, please.
It's kind of cool because when they speak, they throw in like English phrases, Sinhalese words, and sometimes their own slang. When we talk about like the language of what they speak in Sinhalese, so some popular phrases would be like "ayo," which basically just means like come on, or oh, or like, you know, like, so you say something like someone says something dumb, you go "ayo," like.
Now what about men? Using men, like come on, man, let's go,
Yeah,
man.
yeah, like, so using men at the end, so how's it going, men, or come on, men, hurry up, men. And like, you know, like go and come, I'm gonna go and come. Or, you know, what's some others, like, you know, things like machang, you know, is like, you could speak English but say machang, which is like dude or bro, or,
Yeah.
you know, like, so it's like, what's up, machang, you know. Stuff like that. So that's like kind of the language. And
I think for me, the coolest thing about Sri Lanka, honestly, and I guess I'm just saying that now, given the political climate in the world, is that Sri Lanka actually gave the world, it's the first female prime minister. She's from Sri Lanka.
yeah, Sirimavo Bandaranaike.
That's right.
Yeah, 1960. So 1960, and America is only getting its first vice president this next year. So that's something pretty crazy. Just some other things. So when we were there, like, they do drive on the left side of the road, and they have these cool things called tuk-tuks, which are like these 3-wheel things. They're like common in Thailand and India and all over Southeast Asia, but like they're everywhere. They're like cabs, or like cabs are dirt cheap in a sense, you know, like their buses like create havoc everywhere they go. Overall, the traffic's actually pretty orderly for, I guess, Asia, but then when a bus shows up, everyone just freaks out
It's
because
those
the
damn
bus
bus drivers that just don't know how to, like, I
and
don't
they're
know. They
so
can't obey the
loud.
rules.
Their horns are so loud, it's unbelievable.
Yeah, in Sri Lanka, we live on our gas pedals and our horns.
Whereas out here in Canada, we're wimps. Like, we're very scared to use our horn. Like, the horn will come, even if we get cut off, sometimes we don't even use our horn, you know? But in Sri Lanka, you're using your horn to let people know you're going to change your lane, you know? I really want to talk about food because it's so good and so unique. Just because it's like, again, like, you know, people think it's like India. And I would say, like, when I say India, and I don't want to like kind of label the whole, because India is extremely diverse in its own right, but like the basis of Indian food is kind of the curry and the rice, but the curry is usually made of like yogurt and like ghee, which is like that heavy kind of clarified butter and stuff like that. And it's like very similar, you know, like you go to an Indian buffet and it's different shades of brown. Whereas Sri Lanka, they use a lot of like coconut oil and stuff instead
And
of
coconut milk,
which makes a lot of their, like, they have a lot of like vegan friendly foods which still taste like meat. Like, well, probably one of my favorite vegetarian dishes is called polos, which is a jackfruit, which is the world's largest fruit, but they pick it when it's young, and when it's young it hasn't gotten sweet, so it's they call it poor man's meat, and it literally tastes like almost like pork or beef as like a curry. It's quite incredible. And like, when I first had it, I was like, oh, what's this meat dish? And Shihara's like, no, that's jackfruit. I'm like, no, jackfruit's sweet. She's like, no, but when it's young, it's not sweet. I'm like, oh, that makes sense, because one time I bought a can of jackfruit and it tasted like salt, and I was like, yeah, that's used for cooking. I'm like, oh, because I usually buy the sweet stuff and eat it.
and it's prepared almost like to a blackened, kind of like blackened fish, right?
Yeah.
The preparation's very similar. So
other things, they have like the best calamari dish of all time called hot buttered cuttlefish, very popular in like all over basically.
But once you have that, like your standard salt and pepper, it just doesn't.
Yeah, like calamari out here. Like, I know you're a big fan there, Sean. Calamari, right? You're a big fan, right?
I am. I love calamari.
You should try hot buttered cuttlefish. It'll change your life.
It really will.
We're taking you guys all to Sri Lanka, and that dish is really cool. But probably the most famous dish is probably a dish called kottu roti, which is, I guess kottu means chopped, right? And it's basically just like this it's roti, which is like a bread, I suppose. It's like almost like I would compare it to a tortilla, but much different. But it's similar in how it looks, and it's similar in its texture, and it's chopped up with these blades on the surface with like meat and veggies, and it's just chopped up, and they throw like sauces and stuff in it, and it's served as like, it's like a kind of like a drunk food, like you get it on the street
it's
after the club.
It's street food versus hangover food, right? So
Yeah.
like, and a lot of like these really tiny little places serve them, and you usually go have a kuttu at around 4 o'clock in the morning when you're done partying and you're completely, you're pissed drunk, you need to sober up really quickly and you're hungry, and it's the perfect food. It's all the right spots.
Oh my God, it's so good. It's literally the best thing ever. Like, there's the one place, the most famous place in Sri Lanka, it's called Palau's, and you just pull up even in your car, and they'll bring you like a plate of it, and then you just give the plate back when you're done. It's like, I can't even describe it. It's indescribable how good it is. And like, even just like their bananas are good. Like, it's crazy. Like, when we went there, we went and toured the country, and I was kind of getting sick of the buffets. Like, you get just kind of sick of it, because even in Sri Lanka, like, their breakfast food is not really cold cereal and milk. They have that there, but it's like, things like potato curry and like rice and curry.
Well, also like the hotels will also kind of put that out just to kind of cater to the tourists, right? Who don't want to have cold milk and cereal because they can have that anytime.
Yeah, so. Exactly. But I got sick of that kind of stuff, and I was just like, just give me a banana. And just like, I just ate like 6 bananas. Like, the bananas were just insane. They stay sweet forever. The bananas here are trash. They're so trash. We have the worst bananas ever. I can't even like get over it. Like, they just get so chalky, and these things last for like days. Like,
well, you had bitter bananas. Remember, you were like, "Oh, these bananas are sweet."
Yeah, it's funny. It's the sweetest banana, and the type of banana they call it is called the
ambo.
The ambo, the bitter banana. So it's the one that's not sweet. I'm like, this is the sweetest banana I've ever had in my life. It's like, yeah, that's actually the sour one, the bitter one. Like, oh, okay. And they also have really good desserts. Probably the most famous dessert is the chocolate biscuit pudding, which Shihara makes amazing. That's a really good dessert. They have unique drinks. We could probably talk forever about their food.
The food is really great. What I like about Sri Lankan food is that it's different textures.
Yes.
And that's what I like about it. So you take like a typical plate of, rice and curry, but you'll have your rice, then you'll have like a very spicy chicken, and then you'll have like a salad, which is like a bunch of like local leaves chopped up.
Uh-huh.
And that's not cooked. That's just chopped, literally like a salad. And then you'll have like these other vegetables prepared differently. Like you might have like carrots, which are tempered, and you'll have potatoes, which are roasted. So it's like, so what I like about like the plate is that there's different textures kind of going on. So that's like,
and
it's very pleasant. It looks different. It's visually appealing, and it tastes really good.
And it's very spicy. So like compared to like, so think of like a suicide wing at a restaurant is like mild for some of their curries, and you get something like a babith curry or like a crab curry, like the heat on that is no joke. And like Shihara, like I can't even compete. Like I get emasculated even if I try to compete with Shihara. Like I remember one time, there's a little bit of a side story, but we were at like a bar one time, we're having wings, and we had like the hottest they could get. And there was this table of guys, just burly biker guys, real man type guys.
Full of tattoos and everything.
Tattoos, jacked, and they were just like sweating. They're trying to be tough guys, right? They, these guys, they try to be tough with each other, right? So they're ordering the hottest wings. I look over at them, they're dying. I look over at Shihara, who's had the same wings, not even a bead of sweat on her forehead, just whacking them off. Not even like no milk, no water. Like it's like nothing to her. It's like candy. She's like, oh, these are okay. They're all right. They're not that hot. I'm like looking over to these guys. I'm eating them. I'm sweating. I was just like, oh man, she's got a tongue of like steel.
Well, but again, it's all about the balance, right? So like on that plate of rice and curry, not everything is hot. It's just one thing is really hot.
Yeah.
But then it's kind of balanced with the other stuff, which is not as hot.
That's true.
Because you got to balance like heat and flavor, right? Like otherwise it doesn't make sense. If it's all hot, then you can't taste anything. So it's all about the orgasm in your mouth. It's hot, but it's also very flavorful.
So if I was to tell you what are a couple places to go in Sri Lanka, just off the top of your head, Colombo.
I mean, Colombo's pretty much the city, so like
city.
everything that's like in any major city is there. It has big malls and.
But where would you go to have a nice meal? Like, what would be your like top 3?
Oh my God!
I mean, that's putting you on the spot. Like, that's almost impossible.
That is.
But just name some
many.
more, maybe the most noteworthy places.
So I think Sri Lankan Chinese is amazing.
Sri Lankan Chinese, yeah.
So for
Cancun,
me, yeah. So for me,
hot
like
butter
a staple would
cuttlefish.
be, I guess, flour drum and peach valley maybe might
Flower
tie
drum.
for first place.
Okay, Flower Drum, Peach Valley. I already shouted out Pilau's for Cote d'Ivoire. Pretty much only for Cote d'Ivoire, right?
Yeah, Pilau's is pretty much a cooked place, but also if you want like really good fried chicken, because Sri Lankan roast chicken is pretty good, right?
Yeah.
And you made a really good roast chicken a couple of nights
With Sri
ago.
Lankan spices. And then I guess for like luxury, if you want to like wine and dine your lady, but also kind of eat like a heathen, Ministry of Crab, legit.
Ministry of Crab
But
is
you're going up
amazing.
to like $300 a plate. Very bougie place. They use crabs, these kind of brackish water, freshwater crabs. They usually send out to Singapore because they like them in Singapore. But then these guys, a famous cricketer, partnered up with another businessman. Maybe they're both cricketers. I don't know.
Yeah, they're both cricketers.
And they formed this restaurant,
Yeah.
really amazing menu and like super, super nice, fancy place. So
Yeah,
that's
Ministry of Crab is fantastic, and I think it's like one of the top 50 restaurants in Asia. So,
but like one meal there, you could eat probably for a month. Like if you go to these kades, you can eat for a couple bucks. But like here, it's an expensive place. So be warned if you ever go in there and
yeah, it is about.
curse us out for. But you can get the Crabzilla. Check it out. They have this thing called Crabzilla. It's like a gigantic crab. Like they're huge. You can just get them to order, and they make them in like about 4 or 5 different varieties.
Mm-hmm. So
Incredible.
delicious.
In terms of, yeah, so that's definitely places to eat, I guess. So when we talk about Sri Lanka, what else should we talk about? Maybe famous Sri Lankans. Who would you say are the most famous Sri Lankans?
Michael Ondaatje. I know Canada claims him, but he is born and raised Sri Lankan.
And he's a famous
He's
writer.
a famous writer.
I would say probably, I mean, we could get into it, but rapper MIA is
Yeah,
Sri
she's-
Lankan,
yeah.
but she's actually born in England. And she more so sides on the, well, her father was like a general in the Tigers, right?
Honestly, I'm embarrassed
There
to
was
say I'm
a-
not 100%, but I know she was basically endorsing the other team.
Yeah.
But now the war is over.
We'll
so
touch that on a little. Since 1983 to 2009, there was a civil war with the North Tamil minority, although they were actually the second most populous people,
Mhm.
but they were kind of systematically being oppressed by, more so on a regulatory basis, by the Sinhalese majority under Survival. And then later on, they eventually decided they were going to go the wrong route and form a militant group and an army funded by the Indians and other outside sources. And they went to war and they caused quite a bit of havoc, bombs and so forth. And Shihara has lived through that. But, you know, like it's funny because you should go to the nightclub, right? Or you go to the club or the bar or the restaurant. And then, you know, 24 hours later, there might be a bombing a little ways away. But you yourself were never personally affected.
No, I was not personally affected, but my dad and stepmom were actually they were actually in the city center when one of the bombs went off. So
And your stepmom was in one of the buildings.
yeah, she was
that
in one of the
bombed.
buildings that actually
And
collapsed.
her
So
boss
she'll
died.
actually tell you like stories of people running, and she saw bodies. And like my dad was in the building too, but he was like much higher up. He was on like on a much higher floor.
No.
But yeah, my stepmom was in one of the older buildings that collapsed pretty easily when the bomb went off. So yeah, she still has a little bit of glass in her arm from one of the bomb
Wow.
blasts, so they just haven't taken it out. Like they've not been able to.
Wow.
And it's not causing any harm, so they've decided to leave it. But yeah.
In 2009, the government said enough's enough, and you know, with a little bit of, let's say, human rights, we're not going to gloss over it too much, but you know, they basically crushed them, and you know, people die, right? So there's they kind of get a lot of let's say they get a lot of maybe warranted criticism for how they ended the war, but they ended the war brutally and swiftly, I would say. It's amazing. Like we go to places where they were having battlefields and now they're opening up as tourist locations, and they have wars and they have memorials and stuff. They have wars. They have memorials and they have like monuments and so forth. but it's a thing of the past, and the country is more or less unified.
Oh yeah, and and even during the war, like we talked about, like the Tamil minority, or who's really the second majority. But like in Colombo and stuff, they were holding like CEO positions, and some of them belonged to wealthy families, and so it was pretty much all right in most of the country, except for like in the north where like this whole war started.
Yeah, so most of the people are what you call Sinhalese, and they follow Buddhism, and they're kind of like, they're known as the lion people. They represent the lion on the flag of the Sri Lankan flag. The next minority are the Tamil people, who were part of that war. They're from India, southern India, Tamil Nadu region. They usually follow Hinduism and Christianity, and they're represented by the color orange.
Yeah, that's
color
right.
orange on the flag. And then the third minority are, I guess, the Moors, which Shihara is, Sri Lankan Moor. They're represented by the green on the flag. And then the other minorities lower than them would be the Burgher people, who are like, usually Dutch or British ancestry. They look like
British.
white people, but they like speak fluent Sinhalese. It kind of blow your mind, actually. Shihara's uncle is a Burgher, and he's pretty cool. Like he looks like almost as white as me, and he's like speaking fluent Sinhalese. Like he can mess some people up out here, like if he wanted to. And then I guess you could say Malays and some of the native people called the Vedas.
Well, they're actually the original Sri Lankans, right? They're like, I guess they're like the natives of Canada and the US, right? They're like the first original people. So all of us people like me, we're all immigrants to the island, right?
Right.
I'm not a native Sri Lankan. I guess my ancestors have been there for like hundreds of years, but if we had to get down to like bare bones and semantics, I'm not a native Sri Lankan. So
right.
Yeah.
And now let me just touch on some more famous people, and then maybe I'll open it up for you guys to talk or ask Shihara any questions if you want to. Just some other, like, I guess in terms of sports for you, Sean, I would say probably their hero, well, maybe the one hero is probably track star Susanthika Jayasinghe, who won silver in the 2,000 200-meter relay. She actually placed third. But Marion Jones, the great cheater, got her medals stripped, so she got second. But she only lost second by 1/100th of a second. So she's 1/100th of a second away from being a gold medalist. And if her arm would have swung at that certain beat, she would have been a gold medalist. And she's a hero for Sri Lankan track because, I mean, where Marion Jones cheated and got $1 million, facilities and training coaches. I mean, Susanthika's a villager who
she's not
ran the country roads. She's an absolute inspiration. And I would say probably the biggest sports thing, probably 96, eh?
Yeah.
So cricket is the biggest sport in Sri Lanka. It's not their national sport. It's actually volleyball for some weird reason.
Weird.
But 96 World Cup, Sri Lanka won. And it's kind of their, for us Saskatchewan Rough Rider fans, Sean and Shane, it was like our 89, they haven't won since, and then finally Riders won in 07, I think. But it's been a while. But they were in the 11 final, but that game was said to be rigged for India. And I actually have mentioned that before, and I might do a whole pod on that World Cup game being rigged, because that was like some seriously weird stuff. Like they were poised to win that, hey? Like they're definitely
it was extremely, it was just it was
very
weird.
sus. So anyways, guys, I can talk more about it, but let's bring you guys in if you guys have any questions for Shihara, or if you want to say anything. I hope you guys are there.
I'm still there. No, I find it interesting. I mean, at least with cricket, like I know I worked with a fella who was South African, and I know those rivalries can get pretty ugly in that sport.
I like to talk about food. No, seriously though. Like you're right when you say that there's, like, you can go to Indian and get Indian food in Calgary at a restaurant, and it's kind of the same between restaurants.
Yes.
Whereas if you get, like, I had some of that Sri Lankan food at Zara's first birthday there.
Oh yeah.
Way different.
It is, isn't it? It really is. They do have curry, but even that's different,
Yeah, it's different textures, right? Like, and that's,
And like they have different types of like beef curry. Like they have like a blackened beef curry. that's like used with like different kinds of spices that's almost like dark. It's like you go to Sri Lankan buffet and the colors are just, they use like flowers of the banana, like they chop that up and make it into something. Like it's very interesting, very unique. Oh, and I should say one thing about food. And one fact is that cinnamon originated in Sri Lanka, and actually true cinnamon is native to Sri Lanka only. But most of our cinnamon that we eat is called cassia, and it's actually used in like rat poison and stuff. And it's like a far lesser quality, but more potent, more stronger cinnamon flavor. And that's common in like, that's grown in China and Indonesia. But true cinnamon is Ceylon cinnamon.
I guess the one thing I do have to ask Shihara is, because when I first met you, I thought you were a girl from India who grew up in London. Because your accent to me sounds very British. It's not like, and I'm not trying to be rude or anything like that. I'm just trying to point out another difference. Like, is that something that comes from learning English, or is it like, where does that come from?
You know what? Our accents are different, and that's another thing that differentiates us. We sound different. Maybe it is from learning English, but even if you speak to like, even if you go to like rural Sri Lanka and speak to the people, they'll sound pretty much like me.
Yeah. It's just a uniqueness, I suppose.
Because you've also met some of my family members, right? Like you've met my mom and my sister and...
Yeah, very, very briefly. I didn't really... Like I talked to your mom for a little bit and I can't remember what she sounded like.
She doesn't sound very Indian at all either.
Yeah.
It's, you know, it's funny because when you see them on their own, you might think that they're Indian, but when they're next to Indians, it's like very different. It's kind of amazing, actually.
Yeah, because you had mentioned like there's kind of a language barrier there.
Oh, absolutely. Like no clue what Indians are saying.
Yeah, they'll come up to her mother in different shops and try and speak to her in Hindi, and she'll have no idea. And they think that she's like some terrible Indian, right? Who doesn't know her mother tongue, right? And she's like, no, I just don't understand it. I'm Sri Lankan. But they also aren't very, I would say they're not very learned about their neighbors because they just don't really know. They just assume, you know? And, you know, it's kind of like Americans to us, you know? Like we're just
about to say, sounds familiar.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah. Anyways, I guess we'll kind of leave it there. Shall we?
I'm free to go.
Yeah. So next time I'll have you on, you can talk about the many things you know.
Sounds good.
Many other things you know.
In fact, when Jason called me to do this, I was like, Jason, people are going to think that all I can talk about is Sri Lanka.
Not the case.
Well,
Not the case.
Well, yeah, I can think of a myriad of things I'd love to talk about. Now, not all these topics are coming to my head right now.
Well, there was a war story I got from your dad from Sri Lanka where a Japanese pilot crash landed in Sri Lanka, and the girl tried to marry him or something.
I thought the guy liked her. Like
the guy liked her, and she was like feeding him and taking care of this Japanese soldier. I guess kind of a prisoner of war.
That is a funny story, though.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, my dear. Thank you for coming by and talking about Sri Lanka and all that.
Thanks for coming on,
For
Shara.
having me and indulging me.
And
Good talking to you again.
he said, thank you. Or he said, nice talking to you again.
Oh, nice talking to you too, Sean and Shane.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, you too, Shara.
All right, you guys. You guys hold tight. We'll go back to whoever's next, and we'll carry on from there. Thank you to my guest Shihara for talking about her homeland, and we'll be right back with I don't know who's next. We'll figure it out. One of you guys will show up. See you soon.
Phone will start talking.
All right.
So I know in past episodes we talked a little bit about kind of wild and wacky kind of finishes to Olympics, a more kind of turn of the century, beginning of the Olympics. So I'm going to talk about kind of a wild and wacky finish at a more modern Olympics. I'm going to talk about short track speed skater Stephen Bradbury. He's the first Australian and the first athlete from the Southern Hemisphere to win a gold medal in the Winter Olympics. And he won that in 2002 in Salt Lake City. Or actually, I should say, everybody else lost the gold medal, as you will learn. Now, Bradbury himself in his career was no slouch. He is a four-time Olympian. He won the bronze medal in 2004 in Lillehammer in the 5,000 meter relay. He's also a former world champion in the 5,000 relay and a three-time world championship medalist.
You mean 94?
94. Yes, thank you. So now, come the 2002 Olympics, Bradbury was actually the second oldest competitor in the field in the short track 1,000 meter, and he definitely was not considered a medal favorite. So he actually quite easily won his heat race, but then heading into the quarterfinals, he was up against hometown favorite Apollo Ono and defending world champ Canadian Marc Gagnon. And only the top two in the quarterfinals would move on to the semis. Well, Bradbury ended up finishing third and figured he was done. His Olympics was over. But a judge ruled that Gagnon had actually blocked another racer and he was disqualified, moving Bradbury into second and advancing to the semis. So there's horseshoe number one. So going into that semifinals, he knew he wasn't the fastest skater out there. And so consulting with his national team coach, they decided, just stay back from the pack. There's a lot of competitive racers out there this year or this Olympics, and they're being really aggressive. Now, if my math is correct, there were 5 races in each heat. All he needed was just 2 racers to fall down, and he'd at least have a medal. And the way they were going, it was a possibility. So heading into the semifinals, Bradbury was well off the pace. He wasn't even close to the leaders. And defending Olympic champion Kim Dong-sung of Korea and Olympic medalist Lee Jinjiang of China, as well as medal favorite Matthew Turcotte of Canada. It was a stacked field, as you can tell. And, Lord knows not all of them could fall down, except that they did. Bradbury just cruised to a semifinal victory because everyone fell down. Horseshoe number 2. So the final was set. There was Ono, a medal favorite, Lee, a medal favorite, Turcotte, a medal favorite, Eun-Young-soo of Korea, who's obviously going to be another favorite, and Bradbury. So, of course, there was no way he stood a chance. And again, he fell well off the pace. Wasn't even close to even being in the medal hunt. And you think surely not everybody could fall down again and, give him a gold medal. Well, except again, it did. The skaters in second and third ran into each other. Ono was leading the pack. They bumped into Ono. He fell down. The guy in fourth kind of got caught up in everyone falling down. And this was right on the final lap in the final turn. So Bradbury, all he had to do was skate across the line without running into anybody. And he won the gold medal because basically no one could stay on their feet. Now, of course, because this was in the States, he was vilified by the American media. USA Today said he looked like a tortoise behind 4 hairs. The Boston Globe said multiple crashes allowed the wrong person to win. And obviously, the Americans were upset because they wanted Ono to win on his home ice. But back in Australia, Bradbury was a legend. And he even became part of Australian vernacular. Have you ever done a Bradbury? Have you ever been Bradburied? Heck, even Australia issued a 45-cent stamp with his name on it. And that came out even days after his victory. And he actually received, $20,000 to use his image. And he joked that he'd use the fee to get himself a car because he hadn't had a car in a long time. And it actually would have been funny, but he actually had to borrow $1,000 from his parents just before, from his parents to fix his car just before heading to the Olympics because he had no place, no way to get to his training facilities. But I mean, you might as well go out on top. After the 2002 Olympics, he called her quits and called it a career. And so that's how Stephen Bradbury lucked himself into a gold medal.
I just was curious, Sean, your personal opinion about his victory. Do you think he earned it, or do you think it was kind of more just circumstance? And do you agree with, all the headlines that bashed him?
I disagree with the headlines that bashed him, because it was very much biased towards Paulo Ono, especially in America. You kind of have to understand short track speed skating a little bit. It's in some ways a lot like roller derby, where guys are constantly bumping into each other, and technically you're not supposed to push people, but it happens. So falling is part of that sport. But the fact that in the semifinals and finals, everybody fell down to give him victories is it's a rare occurrence. I mean, to be fair, it was part of his strategy. He figured out, hey, just stay back in the pack and see what happens. You knew guys were being aggressive. It's just strategy.
Short track speed skating, it's a little bit like chess with the violence of it all, in the sense that you do have a strategy, and they make their moves at the last minute, and they there's a pace setter, there's a trailer, there's people who jockey for position, and at the very end, it's kind of an all-out war. In fact, in the 1,000 meters, they kind of just set the pace, and they just take their time, and they move, and it's kind of like the cyclists are also like that, the velodrome cyclists. But if you look at it, at the very end, they kind of all jockey for position, and yeah, it's a part of the sport. People fall. I would definitely not. I would say there is sort of an asterisk in the sense that, was he the best skater? No, he was not even close. In fact, in that race, he was way behind, and he would never have had any hope of winning if they had not fallen. But it is such a common occurrence in the sport that you can't fault anyone for winning by someone else falling. You can only just get mad because some guy just knocked another guy down, and a lot of them get mad like that, right?
Yeah, like, I mean, you can only do what you can do, right? It's not his fault everyone fell down.
Yeah, and it's not like, how some, like, whether it be NBA or NHL or, MLB, like maybe some star player gets hurt, and, they get hurt, and then there's another injury, and then the other team wins, and they put this asterisk on them and say, well, they won because, these people got hurt, or, like all these factors. And sometimes it's fair to say that, but with short track speed skating, it is so common for people to fall. Every Olympics, someone falls, like, a Gagnon or an Ono, or I forget what was his name, the French-Canadian guy. He was also favored to be with.
Turcotte?
No, this is recent guy.
Recent.
Amlan.
Oh, yeah.
Amlan, he was favored to win. Like, they all fall. Like, things happen, right? I mean, that's the thing with any sport.
Especially that sport. Actually, it's funny because I think it was a few years before that Olympics, Bradbury actually had a fall of himself, and it's actually a dangerous sport, especially those blades. He actually got cut in the leg quite seriously and just about ended his career right there.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's definitely the most entertaining sport in all of Winter Olympics, in my opinion. I love short track. Sure. It is so intense.
It is, and that's just why I love this story, is the fact that he just lucked his way basically into this gold medal, which most people train years to get gold medals.
Yeah, there's an episode of The Simpsons where the nuclear power plant is going to implode, and Homer just randomly presses a button, and it turns out later that he just guessed it, so they call it the pulling a Homer.
Yep.
And that's totally what this was.
That's exactly what it was.
He bumbled his way into a win. But you know what? Like, good on him. And you know what? Good on him for he was older at the time, and he had gone through a few Olympics already. Like it was a swan song anyway. So to come out like that, it's a great thing to see, and that's the beauty of sports, right? I mean, a lot of these people most people who go to the Olympics know they don't have a hope of winning, but there's always that chance.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like I mentioned, he definitely wasn't a slouch. He was getting up there. He'd been around. Just he knew he wasn't the youngest guy out there. He wasn't going to be the fastest.
Yeah, definitely not. Yeah, in the long track, it's completely different, right, Sean?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. Because how can I explain this? You are racing like short track. Obviously, you're in tight quarters. You're basically running around a skating rink, like a hockey rink, with about 5 other skaters. Whereas long track, obviously, much bigger, the skating oval, basically. And it's just you and one other competitor, and you're more or less, even though you're skating against that competitor, you're more or less skating against the clock too.
Yeah, and sometimes it's 3-on-3, but
yeah, sometimes. And I mean, they still have the relay too, I believe, with the long track as well.
Do they have a short track relay?
Yes, they do, because he was a medalist, and Bradbury is actually a world champ at relay
With Australia?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
That's
and then
weird.
91 he won. He was a world champ.
What the heck? I wonder what happened in those races. Team Australia won in 91. That's really weird.
It's a world championship too, so it's not necessarily. I don't know whether you could mix nationalities in a world championship.
Well, yeah, that wouldn't make sense, would it?
Yeah,
I'm gonna have to go to Google after this. I mean, Japan won the baton relay, didn't they win they won like silver or gold or something? Like they had no competitors for I'm talking about the 100. I guess it's 4x100 meter relay.
Okay, yeah.
And they had no competitors for I don't think they had a single finalist in the 100-meter finals, and maybe not even the semifinals. I think this is the most recent Olympics, or it might have been 2 Olympics ago, but they won or came in second and the whole relay just because they had a great team.
Oh yeah, it's not about the individual at that point, right? You can have the single best skater, but if everyone else lags behind you, but you're only as good as your weakest link.
Yeah. Well, and in the short track, they push them, I think, right? In the relay.
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just wild. The short track relay is just a mass of bodies everywhere. And they're trying to get out of the way, and it's just funny.
It is quite funny, and yeah, just the speed those guys get up to, and just kind of cutting those turns. It's insane.
So yeah, it's a good story there, Sean. I would definitely recommend, and when we do get a website, maybe by the time this is posted, we'll have one. So I'll put a little tag at the end or whatever. But yeah, check out the video of it. It's hilarious, honestly.
Yeah, definitely you can look it up on YouTube. It's quite interesting, that's for sure.
Is that Turcotte who got second? Who just literally crawls.
It was Turcotte and then Ono, I think.
Yeah.
I think Ono finished third, and you could just see him sticking his leg out and sprawling across the line.
Yeah,
too.
it's you never want to get a medal that way, where you're sprawling like a fish, like a flopping fish.
No, it's funny because of course you all fall down now, and you're trying to get back up just to desperately win a medal somehow.
Yeah. Just okay, I'm never gonna get the gold. Let me just limp to a bronze here.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll come back and it'll be Shane's turn. So we'll see you guys in a bit.
Right.
Okay. So the person I'm going to talk about has a name that I'm sure everybody knows. John Harvey Kellogg. That's the guy who basically invented or came up with the Kellogg's brand cereals. And I'm going to talk about what a lot of people don't know about this guy. And before I begin, I want to just preface this by saying, like, for any of our listeners who have any sort of religious beliefs, this isn't meant to attack you specifically. I've met religious people in my life who are very down to earth and very understanding. John Harvey Kellogg, in my opinion, was not. Just to kind of get into it here, he ran what was called the Battle Creek Sanitarium. It was a place where the focus was on like nutrition, massage therapy, something he invented called light therapy, electric current treatments, blood circulation, things like that. But it also kind of has a bit of a darker side to it. John Harvey Kellogg and his family were Seventh-day Adventists, which basically the gist that I got of it from my research is they believe that cleanliness and good hygiene and a strict, very bland vegetarian diet and abstaining from sex and masturbation, which unless otherwise meant for procreation, were all virtuous acts that brought a person closer to God. Now, he took this to another level. In his sanitarium, he prescribed a lot of what I would say very extreme remedies, if you could even call them that, for things. Fiber was a very big thing for him. He had machines that would vibrate, slap, punch patients just to kind of stimulate their bowels. And if that didn't work, he had a room dedicated to giving patients enemas. He had machines hooked up and they would pump out, I think it was like 15 quarts of water a minute right up your ass. And
good Lord.
Yeah. And eating yogurt. And if that didn't work, he also prescribed yogurt enemas.
Wow.
God.
Yeah, like he was kind of he was an extremist, but he also believed in what he was doing was the right thing based on his religious beliefs. If you thought those things were extreme, wait till I tell you what his remedies for things like masturbation were. John Harvey Kellogg was actually also an accomplished surgeon. And he would do things like removing part of a person's genitals. He would circumcise young boys without anesthesia in the hope that the pain of the process would mentally dissuade them from ever trying to touch themselves. Other less extreme methods included forcing some of his patients to wear these chastity cages or tying their limbs behind their backs for a specified period of time. And lastly, he also founded something called co-founded the Race Betterment Foundation, which is exactly what it sounds like. It was an organization that desired to better the human race by selective breeding, and that meant excluding everyone who wasn't white and sterilizing people who were not white. So this guy basically lived until he was 91 years old. He ran this sanitarium, and not a lot of people know this side of him, and I thought I would kind of share that.
Of course he lived a long life, eh?
Yeah.
Of course he did. There is a God.
Just curious how you get from that to making cereal, basically.
What happened with that is
His
that was
brother.
part of his his brother. Like they were His brother was also a 7-day Adventist, but he wasn't nearly as crazy as John was. But they both thought that breakfast was kind of in need of an overhaul, and they created the cornflakes cereal that we all know and enjoy. What had happened is they had basically mistakenly left wheatberry dough on a table overnight, and it went stale, and they were kind of strapped for ideas on what to do with it. So they rolled it out and they baked it, and they broke the baked dough into flakes and decided to just give it to his patients to see what they thought. And people actually, they really liked it. So his brother Will decided to market them as cornflakes and create a cereal out of it. So that was one of the better things that they did. But as for all the rest of it, I think it just goes to show how harmful it can be to be that zealous and overly committed to something like that.
Well,
I don't know what his upbringing would have been like, but I think he went way too far.
It's interesting because, like, I think it's like you said, Shane, because of his beliefs, he felt he was doing the right thing. But boy, that's some terrible stuff.
well, I mean, you know, there's nothing surprising here. If someone does something awful in the name of religion, I mean, that's
That's the oldest
yeah,
story in
that's
the book.
kind of tale as old as time, really. But I mean, I suppose we should kind of make the distinction between his brother Shane, right? Because his brother, from what I understood, was never part of that eugenics club. And
No,
he actually had a falling out with his brother when he wanted to introduce sugar to the cereal and make frosted flakes. And
that's right. Yeah. And it went to court, and his brother won. And so after William won the court case, he basically pretty much severed all ties with John Harvey. And Kellogg's like what we know of Kellogg's today is more or less the brainchild of John Harvey's brother William.
yeah, and the logo is his signature, the brother, not the
Yeah.
asshole.
No, not the asshole.
So I suppose just, you know, if any one is listening, you can eat your cornflakes and not think that it's well, you know what? Maybe you should put down the Coke as well then, because Coca-Cola was founded by a Confederate soldier. So
We should just boycott everything.
yeah, if you want to get sensitive about the products you consume, you're in for a very disappointing life.
Pretty much. I think you would have to pretty much boycott everything you own and consume. Yeah, like chances are somebody suffered to make you your t-shirt or your cellular phone or your video game console, even all the fast food that we eat.
Even NASA brought in German Nazis.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, this guy, I didn't know too much about the brother. I knew the origin of cornflakes was very interesting as a kind of bland food for young boys to not get excited. Kind of a very bizarre concept to think that's how something originated. But it's true, and it is part of history. I definitely feel sorry for any of those people who had to deal with that. The fact that some people were so hell-bent to let other people know how impure they were is kind of laughable, right?
Yeah. And whether it was because they just weren't eating right, or they had this problem with masturbation, or they were just considered, the term at the time was called undesirable, which
Yeah.
basically meant you had a visible ethnicity. You were a visible minority. It singled them out and made them feel bad and ashamed for things that they were really not guilty of anything, really.
And I just want to speak a little bit to the whole race purity thing, because, I mean, obviously that's laughable and completely offensive. But they're actually, because, you know, obviously I'm in a mixed race marriage and my child is mixed race. They're actually showing studies now that mixed race children are more healthier. due to the, how you say, difference in the gene pool. Two white folk from, Ohio or whatever, rural Manitoba, if you will, their gene pool is a little bit closer, right? Because they're likely from a very similar lineage, even sometimes similar nationality, and whether it be German or Polish or whatever, right? Whereas if you have people from various walks of life, a Canadian and a Japanese, or an American and a South African, or, two very, very far reaches of the world, or in my case, a Canadian and my wife, Sri Lankan, apparently the genes are quite strong because they're two very different peoples. Just something I thought I'd say. Basically flies in the face of this guy saying that the strong genes would be having similar genes. A lot of diseases are maybe because the genes are a bit too muddied, if you will.
Yeah, the gene pool kind of becomes stagnant after a while, right? Like the same people. Well, I want to be clear here. I'm not referring to inbreeding, but you know what I mean. Like the same people are always breeding and making more, and you kind of need to introduce something foreign, I guess. I'm trying to choose my words very carefully here, but
yeah, it's a touchy subject. But like if you have two different people who are from two very different walks of life, and their makeup is from lineages that are very different, then they take the good genetics of fighting different diseases on their lineage side, and then on the other lineage on their side as well, they also have a long lineage of fighting different diseases. So when they come together, it's like a power boost, it's like a little bit extra. This is what I've been reading, like a lot of people are saying that like mixed race children from various lineages, different lineages that is, are very healthy, or they're having like a lot of good immunities, or they're fighting diseases, or maybe even things like autism and stuff. That doesn't mean that, what I'm saying is it's wrong for two people from a similar nationality to be together. I'm not saying that's wrong at all. I'm just saying that this guy was saying that the two white people who were from similar lineages, they were having a more pure children or purer race. And I think that's just more so just the fact that and he thought it was muddying the gene pool or distorting it, where in reality, he just thinks that the Christian image is one of a white person, and which is just a laughable notion, really.
Well, and I've talked to Christians as well, and I think they would find this guy's beliefs very abhorrent. It's to be a Christian is to walk in the teachings and the shadow of Jesus Christ, who accepted and loved people for who they were unconditionally.
Exactly.
This guy, I don't know what his issue was, but clearly he had it out for certain groups of people, I think.
Yeah, I think that's why I always come back to, Shane, is what you just said. Like, in the Christian belief is that supposedly is that Jesus loved everyone unconditionally. Like you said, well, that includes everybody, black, white, gay, whatever. And yet they still discriminate and kind of, well, the Bible said, well, yeah, you can pick and choose your battles that way.
Well, and it's not written anywhere in the Bible, from what I've found, where it specifically says a certain group of people are inferior. In fact, they talk about the new humanity, and what they mean by that is the people who have heard the teachings of Jesus Christ coming together as a new community, and it includes people of all races, of all backgrounds, of all ethnicities, and of men, women, young and old, black, white. So it really runs counterintuitive to people who have this idea that this, master race spoken of in the Bible, like the Ku Klux Klan, like that's their deal as well. They say that in the Bible it says that blacks are inferior, and it doesn't say that at all.
No,
in fact, nothing could be further from the truth, really.
Yeah, my understanding was there's always stuff. Some of that stuff was said in the Old Testament, but that's not that's kind of the outdated teachings of Christianity compared to the New Testament. So basically, if you're using the Old Testament to claim these, you're basically using outdated beliefs.
And if you're going to use it, then you have to use it all, which means you can't eat shellfish, and you have to avoid women when they're on their period. I mean, those are all in the Old Testament. You can't eat lobster and shrimp.
Again, since we already had one Simpsons reference, when Reverend Lovejoy once said, "Did you actually read this thing? We can't even go to the bathroom."
Well, there you go, right? I mean, that's the thing, right? I mean, one of the interesting quirks of Christianity is that man has rewritten the Bible many times over and have even changed the rules to fit their own beliefs and how they wanted to rule the land. I mean, I think of the King James Bible, for example. I mean, there's a lot of varying different Bibles, and then there's so many different groups. I mean, the Seventh-day Adventists are one of many, many varying Christian groups, right?
Yeah. And then there's like the Mennonites and the Jehovah's Witnesses and
who have their own books.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, and I see it in all religions too, though, don't you, Jason? Like, you look at the extreme Muslims.
Yeah.
They basically use their teachings to their own advantage or rewrite their teachings to their advantage, right?
Yeah, like the thing about Islam is that the Quran is written essentially by God and it's not changed. But the problem is that the Arabic is an old time of era. It's a very flourished, flowery type of Arabic that has led its credence to mistranslations. I mean, there's like a lot of passages in the Quran that people have taken as like you can kill someone basically, but then like if you look at it, it's like you can't kill anybody. Like so a lot of them will just take sections of it and will mistranslate. My only difference is that if you buy a Quran now or 10 years from now, or like it'll all say the same thing in Arabic. But the thing with Christianity is that they have rewritten stuff. I mean, like the Mormons have kind of created their own faith based on Christianity. There's like so many variations of the Bible that, it's kind of, how do you know which one you're supposed to follow? It goes based on, are you Catholic? Are you Protestant? Which one are you? Like, then, okay, are you Lutheran? Are you going to go Mormon? Are you going to go even more down the road? Like, there's so many variations, and there's a lot of variations of Muslims too, but those are mostly cultural variations. They all have the same book though. So yeah, but you're right though. People will mistranslate stuff to their own.
Yeah, because I was gonna say that still happens in Christianity too, as mistranslating English, basically, right? Like, because you're talking about old time English, someone will read it one way and someone else will read it the other way, and there you have it. That's kind of what I was thinking too, right? Some of these other religions you talk about is just their interpretation of Jesus' teachings.
Exactly. And like the problem, like, and then you have varying stories that are different. Like basically the commandments and the golden rule is in almost every religion, so those are usually the good ones to start with when it comes to learning religions. It's like learn your commandments, learn the golden rule and all that, and then you're pretty much good because it's in literally every religion.
Yeah, it's about bringing people together and improving not just yourself in your own walk of life, but the people around you as well, like your community.
And I don't want to just put shade on the Christians. I mean, this is well documented, but Gandhi also used to give young children enemas all the time.
Really?
Yeah, Gandhi wasn't really much of a saint. He's a good guy and all, but he was very racist against black people. And yeah, he gave young children enemas.
Huh. That was something I did not know about him.
Oh.
Yeah, nobody's perfect.
No, we're not. And like I said, like going back, like I didn't share this on the podcast to shame anyone who has a religious belief or their family has a religious background. Like it's like
Yeah.
like Jason and I both have met people who are religious who are actually really cool and really tolerant and very peaceful and
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, for sure. Same here. I'm not kind of painting everyone with one brushstroke type of deal.
yeah.
No, and there is 7-day Adventists who are definitely do not subscribe to this guy's teaching. Absolutely not. I mean, just like there's Muslims who are not for any sort of terrorism whatsoever, the majority are not. And, you know, Catholics aren't for, a lot of Catholics are not happy with how a lot of the children were treated. You know, there's a lot of bad people in religion, and there's a lot more good. And I would say that religion is a force for good in the world. I know there's atheists who would disagree with me, but I mean, at the end of the day, I see a lot of good in that religion does. Yes, there is a lot of bad, but it really does come down to the individual and how they choose to live their life. And for some, their religion is very important to them to be a good person. And I can understand that.
Absolutely. And
So,
I think it goes back to what you and Sean were saying, that the root of all religion really is to be merciful and compassionate and just accepting of the world around you and the people living in it. I think it's a common thread that you'll find in any religion.
yeah, the golden rule, treat others the way you wish to be treated, is literally in almost every religion, apparently, in one phrase or another. So I think our extra long episode 10 bonanza, I think we can probably bring her to a wrap here, guys, and our first season.
Yeah, for sure.
No, it was a ton of fun this first season.
Yeah, we will be back in, I don't know when, but just stay tuned, and we'll have more episodes coming. But we'll take a break here and kind of regroup and, yeah, come up with a bunch more tales and maybe more guests. You never know. Who knows what we'll do.
Yeah.
But it's been fun, guys. It's been a real good time learning stuff and getting together every week or every other week or every other 2 weeks when we can.
Whenever we're able to record these.
Schedule pending. But it's been great.
No,
Been fun, learned a lot, and hopefully we can continue with season 2.
yeah, I agree with Sean, and I apologize for ending this season on a sort of darker note, but
We wouldn't have it any other way, Shane. If you've made it this far to like the last tale of episode 10, then you are a dedicated listener, and I just want to go and say thank you so much for listening, and we will see you in season 2. Later.
That's 3 tales told.
Later, guys.
How you gonna try to be someone when the people can't see you? How you gonna try to open those doors?
Hey Shane, you know where all the cool kids hang out?
No, where?
Facebook.com/3 tales told. All the great content of our podcast right here. Some, bonus material. Hey, do you have a story idea maybe we could look into? Send us a DM. We also have our email, 3talestold@gmail.com.
See you guys there. That's 3THREE, Tales Told. gmail.com, facebook.com/3talestold. Check it out, guys. Peace.